AM 1230, WJOB 104.7 FM. This podcast is recorded live on a 102-year-old radio station in 75-year-old studios. If you're looking at the GuardStreet podcast for the first time in a different location, and we for 11 years, we're on the campus of Purdue Northwest, and we just moved down a few days ago to these new studios, which is our old studios, and they've been here unoccupied for 11 years. So just if it has a little different look, I thought I'd bring that up. We do a number of podcasts. If you want to highlight your business, your city, your town, your law enforcement, your school district, whatever it might be, we do dozens of them, and it is a way to talk about what you do. This one's going to be a little bit scary. GuardStreet is just for a note, can you turn those other two mics off? Yeah, they're giving me a little bit of. So Lynette Lopez does a really good job of producing here, and we do this, like I said, live. We're also on YouTube. And you can watch live. We're recording here on February 9th of 2026, and you can see us on YouTube. And if you want to, you can also get these on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just type in GuardStreet. So Vince Mazza is with us. You guys have seen him many other times. Vince, how you been, man?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
How about you?
We moved back home. As you can tell, it's really kind of rustic here now, but we're building brand new ultra-modern studios, and I'm pretty excited about being back home.
Just walking around out there, it's really coming together.
We've always wanted a controlled environment.
Yeah.
We were not controlled at Purdue. In other words, the loud trucks would go right by the thing, and then the light would get, a cloud would come, and it was kind of hard, and then you got a lot of street noise. So now we have a closed environment, but in all irony, Purdue is like, hey, this used to be an innovation commercialization center, and then it turned into a cybersecurity center at the exact same time where you came in and did a podcast and said, cybersecurity is the number one hottest topic or hottest subject matter on college campuses. And it's easiest to get a job anywhere in America if you just get a cybersecurity degree. Purdue came in and made it a cybersecurity center. And I'm like, gosh, I should have known this.
Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of ironic. But remind people what GuardStreet does.
Absolutely. So we are a cybersecurity company. We focus mostly on the proactive side of getting companies in a spot where they are protecting their assets. We also have teams of ethical hackers that will actually attack companies for a living, and will show them where the different areas where a cyber criminal could navigate into a company, and then we also handle the emergencies.
So here in the Calumet region or anywhere else you might be listening, you say the word, I hate to say this to anybody that owns a business. I mean, we do business with more than 100 businesses throughout the year. And if any of them happen to be catching this at another time, we play these podcasts throughout the day sometimes. I'm going to say a word that just makes you not sleep well at night. And it's actually kind of a hyphenated word. It's called cyber attack. What is that?
Yes. So what we're going to talk about today is the anatomy of a cyber attack. So a cyber attack is when an outside cyber criminal navigates their way into your network application, and they cause all sorts of ruckus and potentially extort. And that's going to be the focus today, is an extortion attack.
What's a double extortion?
A fantastic question, because the double, particularly over the last year and a half to 2 years, the double extortion and now triple extortion attack has been the in vogue approach. In fact, every major cyber criminal organization is pursuing it. And so what happens is in a double extortion attack, it starts with a ransomware attack where the cyber criminal will get in somehow and encrypt your files and then extort you into, we'll release the key once you pay us. But what happens now is while they're there, they will also exfiltrate your data. So take images of it and then threaten to release that data to your customers, to the regulators, to the world. And you'll have to pay them again not to do that. So that's a double extortion. And then the triple extortion is where there's the encryption, there's the exfiltration that I just described, but then they'll add more pressure by calling your customers and encouraging them to contact you to pay, because the customer doesn't want their information out there. So what that leads to is more expense for the company being attacked, but also when that third level, that could lead to lawsuits. It's a surefire way to cause them.
So let's slow. I want to go into cyber attacks as much as they scare me.
Yeah.
We had one a long time ago, but before it was a nascent industry, and we were able to get around it because we were just too small. It just became. But I know I have buddies that have much larger businesses that have been attacked, and it's an awful thing. So you are in this market. What does, just to define GuardStreet before we go into the anatomy of a cyber attack, what does GuardStreet do?
So the way that, you know what? Let me walk through this attack.
All right, let's go.
And we're going to get into that because I'm going to focus on where we were starting to help the company and where it led to. And to a point that you made a minute ago is, yeah, it is scary. For a business owner, it's a gut-wrenching process.
A city, a town, law enforcement, schools,
a manufacturer, all of them. It's yes, for sure. But I can assure the audience today that there will be a warm blanket at the end. So it often when listen, at GuardStreet, every Friday and every holiday, we're working on the emergencies. So we have a lot of stories, and every time I tell these stories, it's kind of like sitting by the campfire at night, and you're eating s'mores, you're drinking a cold beverage, and somebody's telling the riveting ghost story. That's what I'm going to do today. And so, what do? We were referred to this particular company 3 years ago. And this company wanted to strengthen their cyber posture. And they're in an industry where they have a high value to a cyber criminal, like personally identifiable information. And in this category, they are considered soft targets. Their competitors are soft targets. So in other words, they don't have very good cybersecurity. So what do? The place where we start is let's identify through a quantified risk assessment where you're vulnerable, what controls you have in place and what you don't. What are the gaps? And then we'll prioritize what you need to focus on. During that process, we were told that certain protections or controls were in place, and they really were not, as we found. And we found that during the process. And then we also conducted a penetration test where we break into the company and we identify all the ways that we could get in. And unfortunately, while the intentions were good to understand and strengthen the cyber posture, the actions were not taken to remediate the vulnerabilities. And so at the end of that first year, so the company didn't do anything.
So you gave them the QRA and they didn't do anything with it?
Correct. Very little.
And I think that's the lingo, QRA. Is that it?
The QRA. We gave them the quantified risk assessment. Mm-hmm. That was very good.
Well, I mean, like I said, I followed a buddy who's got a big company, and he had to do what the QRA is almost done. And I'm like, QRA? What the hell is that? But you did the QRA, the qualified risk assessment.
And the pen test, and they still didn't do.
What is the pen test?
So the penetration test is where we have ethical hackers that will operate just like a cyber criminal and attack the company and find a way in and not take them down, but basically then provide a report at the end. Here's the path. Here's everywhere that a cyber criminal would be able to get in since we were able to get in. They didn't do anything. So I wrote an executive summary at the end of the year. You guys need to, pick it up. And then right as they started to take the actions, we wrote an incident response plan for them. Boom, they were hit. And so this happened the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Cyber criminals love to attack just before a long weekend. And so this was just after lunch. The CFO of the company was called. That rarely happens. And it was suspicious because it was from a number from Mexico. And he picked it up, and the person on the other end knew him by name and said, hey, listen, we've got the data on your clients, including this one and that one, and we won't release it unless you pay us in Bitcoin, by this particular date. And the CFO told the other party where to go and hung up. He then called his IT guy in and said, I got this call. This is kind of weird. Within 30 minutes, the email security for the company was alerting. And then they called me. And they explained it. I don't know if this is tied together. And I said, take it seriously, and let's see if you were or are under attack. Can you check the logs? Logs were one of the things that they were supposed to have and didn't. And so basically they were blind. They were not able to see because they didn't have this thing called log monitoring. And they weren't able to see if they were or are under attack. So at that point, let's get the digital forensics team involved, which we did. And now it's a lengthier process to figure that out, but we got right to work. Worked through the weekend. Everybody went home disappointed. Wednesday, very concerned. Right into the Thanksgiving holiday. Early Monday morning, the digital forensics team is still working. Now, this company has 4 offices, about 100 employees. At 8 a.m., in unison, at all their offices, every single printer, scanner, and fax machine started to print. And so if you didn't get the message on Wednesday when we called, or the email security alert, it's coming through loud and clear now. And so on this ransom note, it listed the leaders of the company. It listed several of the files that they had, the customers, even the amount in their bank account. And at that point, they also, we're going to release this to our dark web website, regulators, the media, and so forth, unless you pay us. At that point, this was no longer digital forensics. This was an emergency response, and it was a big one. They pulled us in, the insurance company, legal, FBI, and so forth, and it was a huge effort. We could do a whole show on the anatomy of resilience,
emergency response,
and incident response. And so we got to work. So what happened? Well, the way that the criminals got in is they were doing what's called a password spray, where they've got thousands to millions of different passwords that could, basically allow them to get in. They did social engineering to figure out who the top guys in the company were, so they could, have a username, and then password sprayed, and they got in through their VPN. Once they were in
virtual private network,
how you log into the network remotely. And once they got in, files were not encrypted, and they got to one of the administration accounts. So that's the keys to the kingdom. And that person had their passwords on an Excel spreadsheet that was not protected or encrypted. Immediately, they had their way with the network. They had no way to know. They could have been navigating for weeks, and they wouldn't know. They had an antivirus, but they didn't drop a virus. They didn't drop ransomware, because they got in and they realized, their backups are intact, and they're immutable backups, which means they can't be deleted. You can't encrypt them. And so they couldn't double extort. So they went the path where they knew it would be a lock, which is the exfiltration path. And so unfortunately, that's what happened. And MFA, in what we wrote up in that QRA, was
qualified risk assessment.
Yep.
And the MFA is the
multi-factor authentication. So that extra step when you log in. And so that was at the top of the list, and they had not corrected that. What they had going for them, though, is they had great backups. They had an incident response plan that was just written, so they jumped on it. And the third thing is they had a team in place. They had access to us, and they had a good MSP, and they had the cyber insurance and legal.
MSP is the provider.
The an IT company supporting them. And so they had the right things in place, and they just hadn't organizationally committed to cleaning up the what we found in that cyber assessment.
So back to this incident, they had some good, But they didn't follow the recommendations that you provided.
Correct.
So you're in this at the end of the weekend, and Monday all of this becomes real, and they have all the data. They even have bank account data and some client data,
Right.
and which is maybe the biggest part of that.
And let me go a step further. They had everything. They were in long enough. They had access to everything.
So they're looking at all the clients.
Yeah.
And so now, before we talk about, incident response, how does that change a cyber attack when they actually have your clients?
Well, that brings a whole new level because you're now concerned about your public image. Most cyber attacks are not reported. If it's a ransomware attack, you're not obligated to. If it's a breach, you are. But if you're just being held ransom, you're not obligated to. You can solve it. You can restore your backups. You can pay the ransom. Hopefully not, but pay the ransom. And it could be a quick, expensive, but a quick scenario to get through. But when you start to bring in clients that could be contacted, it's more expensive. It's a bigger deal. It's a bigger deal to contend with. And if there's that third tier, that you have to contact your clients. You're working with your clients through that.
So going back to the beginning of this, how could they have prevented this?
Yeah. So there's some very important things they could have done. Well, first, follow the quantified risk assessment would have been number one. But assuming a company has not had that, this is the warm blanket part of our discussion today. So first and foremost is to make sure you've got your access controls in place, the multi-factor authentication, having a password manager, not storing passwords on a spreadsheet, especially unencrypted, and having least privilege. So certain people don't have access to certain aspects of the network, so it's restricted. Second thing is having good backups, which this company had, very important. Encrypting your data, so there's something called data loss prevention. And if you encrypt your files, maybe you could take them, but it's going to be difficult to unencrypt them. So having that in place is important. But now the aspect of what if you are under an attack? You need to have endpoint protection with a security operations center, so eyes watching it 24/7, and log monitoring, so that if you think you are or were under attack, you can quickly study that and make that determination.
So how do you set up that log? Or can they do that themselves?
So we can help them. Everything that I just mentioned, we can assist with.
So logs.
So we can help set up the endpoint protection, the SOC, Security Operations Center, and the log monitoring. We can help with that encryption, the data loss prevention. We can help them get organized with the access control.
Setting MFAs.
Yeah, so they would need their IT company to help with that, but we would help identify that. We could provide them with password management tools. And then we could help them in terms of identifying the least privilege approach.
So how small do you go where you start to need these services?
When I speak at chambers of commerce, there's bigger clients there or companies there. There's small organizations. Everything that I just mentioned doesn't matter about the size of the company. And all of them need an incident response plan, because unfortunately it's not if, at some point there might be something, maybe not a massive attack, but, maybe it might be that, your MFA was down or something, and an attack got through. It was caught by these other layers of security, that the endpoint protection with the SOC. But you will have to follow an incident response plan at some point, likely.
We're talking to Vince Mazza with GuardStreet Cybersecurity. You know him. We've been doing these podcasts for quite some time, and they're always scary. Vince, but the mostly the 100 or so businesses are mostly small to medium-sized businesses that are owned by, just families usually. There's a lot of larger companies, but the very first thing they're thinking of is, oh my gosh, that sounds expensive.
It doesn't have to be, and here's why. That quantified risk assessment prioritizes what layers of protection a company needs to focus on in order, but based on risk. So if and it's customized to the particular company, its size, its industry, types of attacks.
Could be a 12 location chicken server, or
Sure.
it could be a manufacturer, or it could be a school.
Absolutely. And the prioritization of focus would be different for all of those. And so, look, I'm a big fan of, and I say this to our clients, is look, cybersecurity cannot and should not be an open checkbook. You've got to budget for it, and you've got to have, most importantly, you've got to have a plan specific to your business. That quantified risk assessment is the gold standard, okay? Because then you've got a list of, let's just say, 10 controls that you need to put in place. Okay, let's set up an 18-month or 2-year plan to put them in place. And you can also use that document if you need quotes from IT companies or service providers for those controls. Now, each company will come in with their own proposal. And if you don't have a quantified risk assessment, how do you know which one is right? If you have the assessment, you can say, okay, this guy doesn't get it. This guy, okay, he gets it. And so does this guy, but this guy's really higher priced, and I've heard that he's not. That's a company that will love him and leave him. Let's go with this one because they have a better reputation. But it gives you a guide for evaluating those proposals as well. So you don't have to spend a lot in cybersecurity.
So back to the example that you provided, how did they get past the cyber attack?
Oh, they did the right stuff. As soon as this happened, it was the jolt that really got the leadership into, okay, we gotta take care of this. So they moved at the speed of light. Usually a cyber attack, if you're hit, there's an 80% chance you're going to get hit again in 30 days. And it's because cyber criminals know often that a company will mess up and not put the protections in correctly, or they'll sit on it for a while. They didn't sit on it. So now this company, they were not hit for a year. And they still haven't been hit, thankfully. But they're very strong. They've got a great cyber posture. They've got the warm blanket in place, and they're active with it.
Of course, the extortion and the kidnapping and the cyber attack. But when you said that last thing, I think you kind of buried the lead that they're going to get hit again. The numbers show that if you've been hit once, you're going to get hit again within 30 days. Is even scarier. So you know.
So if you're hit, take it seriously and put the protections in place. And they did. And when I say they're active with it, I mean they're looking at their risks every week. They're evaluating. They're making changes. They're training their employees. Everything that they should be doing, they're doing now.
This podcast is sponsored by GuardStreet. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, you go to GuardStreet.com.
And just follow the contact and all that?
Absolutely. Send us a message, and we're on it. We've also got a toll-free number on the page as well.
And, of course, this podcast will be posted there along with plenty of others, things that will keep you up at night. Vince, thanks. Any final word you want to tell to the small, especially the small to medium-sized business?
If you're losing sleep right now because you're concerned about cybersecurity, that's healthy. It's normal. But place a call, talk to us, and let's at least give you a path so you can get that warm blanket and a good night of sleep.
Until next time, see you later.
Thank you.